Welcome back. The House Budget Committee set to meet later this morning for a markup on a third reconciliation bill. The bill would include about $95 billion in government funding, including $10 billion for the Administration Committee to implement parts of the Save America Act. It also includes $60 billion for defense, $12 billion for agriculture, and $13 billion for intelligence. No funding for the House Ways and Means Committee, which means no tax cuts involved there. VP J.D. Vance meeting with House Republicans on the Hill yesterday. Some within the GOP reportedly expressed frustration about the lack of tax cuts and additional spending. Joining me now is Florida Congressman Greg Steube. He sits on the House Ways and Means Committee. Congressman, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. What are your thoughts on the initial text of this bill?
Well, procedurally, you've got a hurdle this morning in the Budget Committee. There's a lot of conservative members on the committee, and I think all Republicans want to support what we're trying to do as it relates to the reconciliation bill, but there's no pay for right now in the language of the budget resolution. And there's a lot of conservative members like myself who we're $40 trillion in debt, and if we're going to spend more money, we want to pay for and cut spending to match what we're going to spend in defense. A lot of us don't have a problem with that if there's a pay for, so it'll be interesting to see if they can get the resolution out of the Budget Committee, and if they do get a resolution out of the Budget Committee, what this looks like. I mean, what's so sad about all of this, we're doing all of this to pass the SAVE Act in the Senate. The SAVE Act has passed the House 3 times. And even if we do this through reconciliation, I think we're going to run into a problem procedurally in the Senate with the parliamentarian, because she's going to take the policy provisions of the SAVE Act out. And I don't agree with this little gimmick that the Speaker wants to do to entice Democratic states through a grant program to implement the SAVE Act, because they're not going to do that. And we all know that they're not going to do that. Just nuke the filibuster in the Senate, pass the SAVE Act, and let's have integrity in our elections in our country.
Well, I mean, you make the right point on the parliamentarian. So without any pay-fors, how is this going to get anywhere in the Senate? I mean, the House Freedom Caucus wrote a letter to Mike Johnson last week urging any Reconciliation 3.0 bill must include strict dollar-for-dollar and year-for-year spending cuts to restore fiscal sanity, control the deficit, and delay the looming debt crisis. So can you actually meet that goal?
Well, I don't know. We'll see. There's a lot of Freedom Caucus members that probably signed on to that letter that are on the Budget Committee. There's quite a few, actually, that are on the Budget Committee. So, again, this committee will be very interesting, because there's even non-Freedom Caucus members, like Erin Houchin's been very vocal about the fact that we can't be spending this money without pay-fors.
Right.
So she's been very public about that, and she's probably, I mean, she's not a Freedom Caucus member. She's a more, just conservative member of the conference. So if you have members like that are concerned about it, again, let's say optimistically they get this through the Budget Committee today.
Yeah.
You've still got to get it through the full floor on the House. So now you've got to convince every Republican member. Massey's going to be a no. He voted against he's the only Republican that voted against the bill yesterday.
Yeah.
Every other Republican voted for it. And so if there's 1 or 2 more members who have a problem with spending, like Warren Davidson has talked about it, then you've got a problem on the floor. And again, I don't think this accomplishes the mission to pass the SAVE Act. The Senate can't even pass the NDAA. That failed this week because they have to go to Chuck Schumer to get the votes. The American people don't think that we should be going to Chuck Schumer to get the votes when we have a Republican House, Senate, and a White House.
And of course, the Democrats have made no secret about their lack of support for the Save America Act. They just don't want it, despite widespread support from voters who want to see ID to vote and verification of citizenship. Michigan Democrat Senator Elisa Slotkin told us exactly why Democrats oppose the legislation. Watch this.
The other thing that we blocked yesterday was the SAVE Act. Literally allow this administration to rig our democracy so that it would be hard for any Democrat in any state to win any election. And disenfranchise all married women in the meantime, by the way. It just, you have to show your birth certificate at the polls if you have a married name.
So, Congressman, what do you think about that? She says the Save America Act would make it harder for a Democrat to win.
Well, she's right, and she's saying the quiet part out loud, because you're seeing in California there's no voter ID. They ship ballots out. You don't know who's voting. There's no verification whatsoever, and the fraud is rampant. I think there's an announcement today on some election integrity issues that the president's going to make this afternoon. So, again, they know they shipped in 12 million illegal immigrants, and so in some of these states, you only need a driver's license to vote, and those driver's licenses, you don't have to be a citizen. In the great state of Florida, you have to have a citizen verification verification to vote, and you have to show an ID to vote. And 80% of the country, including Democrats, support that. But we can't pass it in the Senate because of the filibuster. And they're not going to, the Democrats in the Senate are not going to vote for that because she said the quiet part out loud. They know they're not going to win elections. So it's time that we have to nuke the filibuster in the Senate to get the SAVE Act passed. It's the only way it passes.
So that's incredible that you think she's basically saying the Save America Act will stop illegals from voting and then Democrats won't win. Is that what she was saying?
I believe that,
yeah.
And you have a whole bunch of people that are voting with no verification, so you don't even know if they're legally in our country or not, or legally eligible to vote.
President Trump is also urging Congress to act on birthright citizenship after the Supreme Court struck down his executive order which banned birthright. Congressman, you've introduced the Birthright Claim Act in the House. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so Kavanaugh, in his concurrence opinion on that opinion from the Supreme Court, kind of gave Congress a path. He basically said Congress needs to act, the president can't do it on its own, and said that to illegal immigrants or illegals in our country who come into the country to simply have a child, so that child is an American citizen, is not appropriate, and Congress can regulate that. If you read his concurrence, he kind of laid out a path for Congress to change it. So as soon as we read that, we started drafting a bill that would do exactly that. If the parents of the child are not citizens of our country, then that child automatically cannot become a citizen of our country. This would end the birth tourism industry that is going on. So we had an intelligence hearing yesterday, and there was a witness that testified that 1.5 million children have been born of Chinese descent in a birthright tourism type industry where they come into the country, they are born here, so now they're an American citizen, and then they go back to China. There's no other country. There's like 3 other countries in the world that do it, and it's a list of countries like the Congo. I had dinner with a group from Guatemala yesterday. They don't allow these type of things to happen. There's no country in the world that allows these things to happen, and if Congress has to regulate it, we filed a bill to do it. Jim Banks has a bill on the Senate side to do it. I'm just afraid of the timeline now because you've only got a few months left in Congress, but these are the type of things that conservatives want done. This is why we want an immigration bill in the House to vote on, and this should be a part of it.
Yeah, that's all great points. In fact, then, once they are born here, they have the ability to vote. Whether they're in China much of their life or not, they can still vote here because they're American citizen. So the birthright citizenship is a real issue. I understand. And now, the House also passed a bill making daylight savings time permanent. Congressman, Florida lawmakers like yourself have long supported this idea, but others from other states are not so supportive. What are your thoughts on daylight savings bill, and what happens to this when it gets to the Senate?
So in 2018, I passed this bill in the state Senate, but we couldn't implement it because the federal law only allows states to opt into standard time, not daylight savings time. So for years, we've worked on this. In 2022, Marco Rubio UC'd it in the Senate. It never got a vote in the House. Obviously, the president has now made it a priority and says he supports it. So finally, after all these years that I've been in Congress working on this, and in the state Senate passing it for Florida, we actually had a vote that it passed and goes to the Senate. I know there's some senators that have some objection to it, but there's a way in the bill that if states want to opt into standard time, they can implement that change before the bill goes into effect. So if they don't like daylight savings time for whatever reason, like I've heard Tom Cotton doesn't like it because they want to be on standard time, that's fine. The state legislature can opt into standard time before the implementation of the bill, and then they would be in standard time when we fall back and not have to change their clocks anymore.
I get it. Congressman, real quick before you go, you just said, look, we need to nuke the filibuster in the Senate. John Thune was on with me just a couple of weeks ago saying he doesn't have that kind of support by Republicans in the Senate to nuke the filibuster. Are you expecting Democrats to get rid of the filibuster when and if they get in the majority?
Absolutely, they're going to. They've already talked about it. They said they're going to in 2021. They attempted to do it, and the only thing that stopped them was Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, and they're not there anymore. Yeah. Every other Democrat would vote to nuke the filibuster in a heartbeat.
Wow. All right, Congressman, we'll be watching all of that. Thanks so much for being here. Congressman Greg Steube this morning. Good to see you, sir. Stay with us. We'll be right back.